Welcome to NCSS Here for You. Since 1958, Northwestern Counseling and Support Services has been providing access to high-quality services which promote healthy living and emotional well-being to the residents of Franklin and Grand Isle counties. Over the years, as the needs of the community have changed, so too have the programs and services that we make available to assist children, adolescents, adults, families, and seniors. We take our role in the community seriously and strive to provide the highest quality services. According to Eric Erickson, a noted developmental psychologist, every person must pass through a series of 8 interrelated stages over the entire life cycle. NCSS provides a continuum of services to meet the needs of individuals who at any point seek assistance. NCSS's purpose is creating a stronger community, one person at a time. Now, let's get to today's show.
I'm Joe Halco, Director of Community Relations for Northwestern Counseling and Support Services, and welcome to another episode of NCSS Here for You. Each month in this program, we discuss a human services topic, and we do that with staff from one of our 3 service divisions. Our 3 service divisions are Behavioral Health Services, Children, Youth, and Family Services, and Developmental Services. And on occasion, we have guests from organizations that NCSS collaborates with throughout the year. This month's episode is titled Healthcare Advance Planning. In life, we prepare for everything: college, marriage, children, and retirement. But when dealing with our healthcare needs, seldom do we talk about preparing for the end of our lives. Talking is the most important thing that we can do to ensure that our wishes are known if we can no longer speak for ourselves. Making decisions before you're faced with a crisis is a gift you can give your loved ones. During the past month, NCSS has been involved in a healthy competition with community partners, the Franklin County Home Health Agency, Northwestern Medical Center, the Notch, and the St. Albans Healthcare and Rehabilitation Center, to start the conversation with our staff and to complete advance directives. To discuss healthcare advance planning in greater detail, I'm pleased to introduce this month's guests. They are Aaron Armstrong, Community Rehabilitation and Treatment Team Leader in the Behavioral Health Services Division, and Colleen Sears, Quality Reviewer and Trainer in the Developmental Services Division. I'd like to welcome both of you to the show today.
Thank you.
So first of all, these are difficult conversations. What is the best way to start the conversation?
Well, you're right, Joe. They are difficult conversations. People tend to avoid the topic of speaking about their end of life. We our hope by talking about this this month and in the future months is that people will be open to considering advance directives as something that is just a part of what happens when you turn 18, and it's not necessarily an end-of-life planning, but more of just advanced care, like you had mentioned earlier. In the event of any unforeseen medical condition, accidents happen, things happen sometimes. It leaves us in a place where we're unable to speak for ourselves. So I think one of the easiest ways to get people thinking about it is just to have people reflect on the question of, do my loved ones know what I would want should something happen to me? And I think that if most of us really think about it, the answer is often no, they don't know what they would like. So I think that's a nice question to kind of reflect on when you begin to think about advance directives.
And let's dig a little deeper into exactly what is an advance directive.
So basically, an advance directive is a legal document that you make up, which includes all the wishes that you have in the event that you're incapacitated. So basically what you want to do is you want to appoint somebody, a surrogate or a health agent, and they will be the ones that will ultimately make the decision for you when you're incapacitated. So you want to talk to your family, your spouse, if you have children that are old enough to help in, meeting your wishes. And basically at that time, you're going to make a list of all the things that you want done if you're incapacitated. And mind you, it doesn't have to be someone that's in their 50s or 60s that's planning their will on, what's going to happen in the future. they really should think about it when they're younger. And that way, I mean, we have so many things that happen as far as car accidents. You could have someone that has a heart attack that may not be able to talk for themselves. So you really want to make sure that at any age you have someone that can voice your opinion and what your wants are in the event something happens.
And Colleen, when you say that, what is the youngest age that someone can execute or complete an advance directive?
They highly recommend that anyone over the age that turns 18.
18, okay.
And we did have a little discussion about that, and there are a lot of families who, you know, they don't want to think about your child, you know, that young getting hurt, but I think a lot of people are still with the conception that it's basically if you get in an accident, you know, you could be any age. You never know these days. And, you know, who's going to speak for you? You know, does anybody even know what you would want? So it's definitely to make sure.
Sure. So now, how does someone go through and prepare an advance directive with all the steps that are involved?
The Vermont Ethics Network is a great resource. Their website offers all of the 3 forms that you could use to fill out an advance directive. And I think the most important part of that process is identifying a healthcare agent, as Colleen mentioned, but also making sure that that person's clear on your priorities, your goals, and any sort of philosophical ideas that you might have about, you know, end-of-life care or advanced care planning. And so, you know, the important thing is that they're aware of those things and that their job throughout that process is really to act out your wishes. So they're not necessarily making the decisions, they're enforcing your decisions that you've identified, and that can take a huge burden away from them. And so just making sure that they're clear on, you know, sort of your ideas is really the most important thing.
Now, it's my understanding that there's several different forms that one can fill out. There's short forms, long forms, etc. But what is the most important part when someone is completing these forms? What is the absolute most important thing that they need to?
I want to say that the most important thing is to make sure you have a health agent. Even if you're not clear on what you would want done, if you're in the hospital and, you know, you're on a respirator, you know, do you want a feeding tube, those types of things. At least if you have a health agent, they would know somewhat what you might want for, you know, in the case that happens. So the most important thing is to make sure you have a health agent assigned, and then you need to submit that in any form to the Vermont Health Registry. And what some people don't realize is once it's in the health registry, your doctors and hospitals, they have access to that. And Vermont is one of the very few in the United States that has that. But you still want to make sure that you're also giving it to your primary physician. Your health agent should have a copy, your family, and hopefully your family knows what your wishes are too.
And I think a lot of people feel overwhelmed by filling out paperwork. I mean, that in itself sometimes can feel like a barrier to this process. But there is a 1-page form that's the designation of a healthcare agent, which is really the most important form. The short form is, you know, between 6 and 8 pages and goes into a little bit more detail. And of course, the longer form is 20-something pages and gets into a lot more of the specifics and more of the advanced planning process. So, you know, I think the quick and easy is the 1-pager, and getting that done is definitely the most important.
Now, what if someone doesn't have an advance directive, and then legally, how do healthcare providers handle those circumstances if someone is now in a position that they can't speak for themselves?
And I think that's the problem that a lot of people are running into right now is they don't have a will, they don't have a power of attorney to make medical decisions. And what's been happening is we just found out that in Vermont, legally your spouse is not automatically a surrogate or designated to make those decisions for you. So you really want to make sure you have a health agent to do that. In the event that you're incapacitated, the hospital, they're going to do everything by means to make sure that, you know, you're stable and things are under control while you're at the hospital. They're not going to be able to just stop things because they're not going to have that information.
And if family steps in and tries to express what they think may be your wishes or what might be their wishes, it becomes a court-involved process at that point. So it's not, it doesn't default to, family or spouse or guardian even sometimes. So.
Right, and there's been some pretty highly publicized cases lately, where they've been talking about it on the news, where they didn't have a living will. They were fairly young, I don't think they expected anything to happen, and now that's what's happening. You've got different family members that are arguing over what the care should be, and whether the care should be prolonged or discontinued. So a lot of it involves having to go through legal channels.
So with what you're saying then, when you do make the statement about young people actually completing one of these, this only goes to show how critical it is, because everyone's not going to live to be 70, 80, 90 years old. You don't know what you face tomorrow. So with what you're saying, it seems to me that most Vermonters don't realize or understand the importance of this, that they probably do think that if something should occur, then automatically their spouse will be able to speak on their behalf, etc.
Right, and I was one of those that felt that way. I didn't realize it. So I think it's really important because, we talk a little bit about not having a health agent or someone to help with your wishes. If you don't have anything set up, then the family would be a burden. They would be burdened to make that really challenging decision that some would not want to make,
Yeah, it is the gift of ease in many ways. Nobody wants to be making difficult decisions in a highly emotional time, a highly stressful time. We've all seen a lot of family conflict coming out of, differences in opinions on what is best for the person. But it's the gift of ease. If you outline it all and somebody's aware and you've got a healthcare agent, designated, then it makes the process a lot smoother and, less painful for everybody.
Well, I would also think, you're right, under those circumstances, the stress level, because you weren't anticipating this, that people will sometimes make snap judgments, they'll get into debates about things that really, if everything's outlined, there is no debate. It's a matter of this is the wishes of the individual, this is what we need to follow.
Yep.
That's a whole different dynamic than what you're painting as far as, if under the circumstances people are basically arguing about which route to take.
And if you have an advance directive, they have to follow it. You can't. Your children can't change it. No one can change it because you've already legally done that.
Now let's talk in more detail about the importance of selecting the healthcare agent, because it sounds like that is one of the determining factors in somebody really jumping off and starting to go through this process.
Right. Some people automatically might choose their spouse, their partner. We've had in the past some individuals that decided to choose someone else because of the family dynamics. Maybe they weren't all very close, or some lived out of state. So in the past they've chosen a friend. I talked to my friend, actually. She has me listed as hers because she really felt that there might be a time where her family might not agree with what she wanted. And during that time, like you said, there's a lot of stress. I mean, I wouldn't want my child to be making that decision, So there are alternatives. The one thing that you need to remember about a healthcare agent is you need to meet with them. You need to discuss what your wishes are and make sure that they know they're your health agent. There have been instances that someone went into the hospital and someone was listed as a healthcare agent. They called the healthcare agent and the person didn't even know that they had been appointed. So they were feeling kind of like, wow, So to be really clear that your health agent knows what your wishes are, that they have a copy, you've talked to them about it. And that's not to say they're not going to discuss things with your family, if it's not a family member, but they're going to abide by what you want.
So you're right then, one of the important things would be the fact that not only you choose the healthcare agent, but they're aware of it, you've talked to them about it, and they have a copy, so that if and when necessary, it's just a matter of them pulling that out and taking care of your wishes. Now, do you need to have a lawyer to complete an advance directive?
You don't, Joe. You basically just need the forms. That's the nice thing about it. You don't need a lawyer. You don't need a notary. You just need the forms and a couple of people to witness your signature to make sure that it's you signing it, and that's it. So it's a fairly easy process.
Now, as far as witnesses, can those witnesses be family members, or how does that work as far as the...
The witnesses, I believe it's best for them to not be family, spouse, or the healthcare agent themselves, to just have sort of other people, maybe coworkers, neighbors, things like that, that don't have, sort of that immediate relationship to you.
So they really would be the most ideal situation. They wouldn't have a quote-unquote vested interest.
Right.
You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Yeah.
It would be more
Right.
of a, okay.
Should anything happen.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, can you change your advance directive at any time?
That's one of the great things about the Advance Directive. Some people right now are just assigning a health agent so that they can update it later on with their more specific information. You can change your Advance Directive at any time. Again, you would need to fill out the form, either most likely the short form if you're making changes, and get 2 new signatures, witnesses. And then again, you have to re-register it so that everybody has the updated information, because if you don't do that, then they're going to go by your old one. But you can do it anytime you want.
Now, when we talk about registering, so it seems to me like you have this directive and that there's a variety of places that this goes to make sure that everyone and anyone that would need to know has this information. So you had mentioned with the state of Vermont, but also like your primary care provider. What about like hospitals and of course your healthcare agent, but what would you say, what would be the ideal situation as far as everyone that receives copies of this?
Yeah, I think like you said, the hospital that you live closest by or may be most likely to use, your primary care physician, friends and relatives, a copy for yourself, your healthcare agent. And what's nice about the registry is it's a database essentially that's accessible to, if you are, not near the hospital that you usually go to, or if you're not unable to speak and your healthcare agent isn't with you, they can access that information and know who to contact and get involved in that process.
But that's another reason that if you do update it, you want to make sure the registry has the most current version so that they're not, I would imagine if you don't give them the most current version, they're going to work off of whatever they have, and maybe that exactly isn't what your wishes are, which could lead to a whole other bundle of potential problems.
Right, absolutely. People's preferences change, their life circumstances change, and
Because I would think, we're talking about 18 and older, that at all milestones in one's life, perhaps they want to modify this. Someone gets married, then they have children, and on and on. I mean, does that make sense? Or
yeah, it's probably wise time to kind of just take a look at it and see if you do have any changes.
Yep. Or if there's a health change, you might have somebody that has something happen in their life.
Now, what are the differences between hospice and palliative care? 'Cause I know sometimes people kind of confuse the two, and
Yeah, and I think they're similar in a lot of ways, and I think that's why it might be confusing. But the palliative care is for someone that has been diagnosed with a long-term illness, like cancer, and they're going to be having treatments. And the palliative care is the care they're going to go through from the time of the diagnosis until the end. So, and that's whether there's recovery, remission, but it's for that whole time during that illness. Where hospice is for end of life. So you may have someone that has been given a diagnosis of death within 6 months. So they're giving you a date or a month. And basically what they're saying is, you need to make a decision on where you want that care to be. They can do the care for hospice in the hospital, but many people prefer at home with their family. And hospice will come in, they will help with medication, bathing, personal care, the comfort care toward the end. And they also do counseling and help the families deal with the grief and the process at the same time.
One thing that was interested that I learned about hospice is actually a lot of times it is covered by insurance, and I don't think people know that. In fact, Vermont is one of the states that uses hospice the least. So it's just, again, it's something that people just don't talk about and don't think about. But it's a resource that's there to a lot of folks.
Yeah. And they did say something about hospice, they will help whether they have insurance or not. They will provide resources, they will help the family, you know, in making the decisions. And where I think a lot of people just think, you know, their insurance might not cover it or they don't have insurance, but the hospice and home health really work closely in ensuring that somebody can be there to help the family.
So this past month, you know, as an organization, NCSS has been competing in a friendly, healthy competition with our other community partners to see which organization on a percentage basis could have the greatest number of individuals complete an Advance Directive. And that's wonderful because we've started the conversation and I think, you know, raised awareness and that sort of thing. But what do you see as ways that that conversation should continue, though, more on an ongoing basis, and really almost making it a part of, not that it's everyday life, but making it a part of discussions on a more normal level or recurring level? Is there a way that you feel either as an organization or individuals that can happen? Because I know that, you know, many times organizations that do deal with individuals at end of life, of course that's much more predominant in the discussions and talking. But an organization like ours, where, you know, first of all, you know, our clients range across the board as far as age, and then secondly, our staff, where we have a lot of young staff as well. These are individuals that aren't typically in any way, shape, or form thinking about this at all. You know, there's other concerns that they have on their plate, but this is something they should be thinking about. You know, are there ways that you think we can keep the conversation alive and going on a more regular basis?
Well, one of the things that I think we'd like to incorporate, you know, within NCSS is making sure that our clients are informed. You know, making sure if they have a case manager that they see, you know, that they can give them that information, because like you said, they're not going to seek it out. We have individuals who, with a developmental disability, who might not have a guardian, they might be their own guardian, and, you know, what would happen? What would their wishes be if something happened? You know, and if they don't have anybody set up, you know, and many don't have family, but even in your behavioral health, I think there might be people that, you know, they'd like that information, you know, and I think that it'd come across as more comforting coming from maybe their case manager.
So basically trying to somehow incorporate it into the day-to-day of the case manager's role in trying to at least ease into that conversation with people and then see where it goes from there.
Yeah, and I think, you know, just having little incentives or like this friendly competition that we're doing, I think just gets people talking about it, and that's really the hope, you know, is that people are talking about it because they haven't been. And so, you know, any ways we can sort of keep the conversation alive, whether it's, you know, discussing it at different team meetings or out in the community at different events, even if it's just a 5-minute blurb about this is what an Advance Directive is and this is why you should have one, I think will be helpful in just, you know, keeping people thinking about it.
Yeah, and I think as far as staff too, I mean, you could even go around and put a button on everybody's desk or in their mailboxes, you know, just a little reminder, or, I mean, we've done it before for different occasions that we were, you know, celebrating, and leave a piece of candy, you know, in their mailbox with a little note on it, so it could say start the conversation, or, you know, things like that.
Now, I know that the two of you actually have been trained as facilitators in this area, and is there anything over and above what we've talked about so far that struck you as far as, you know, whether it's circumstances that people encountered because they didn't have one, or anything else that you think is important to share with the audience concerning the whole healthcare planning and advance directives that comes to mind?
One of the things that I found is working in the population that I do, making sure that someone does have an advance directive or at least have a beneficiary or someone assigned. We did run into a problem one time where someone became ill and was incapacitated, couldn't make any decisions, and then ended up passing. And we had no next of kin we could contact. You know, there was really no one that we could work with to make sure this person's needs were met. And even though we knew what he wanted, you know, the hospital had to go by the legalities of it. So, I mean, it was kind of sad. So I think that if we all, you know, promote to everyone that you should at least have a health agent that you can talk to that, you know, will know your wishes, then at least there's some, you know, something that we can do.
Anything else come to mind that?
I mean, one thing that surprised me the most from the training, and I mentioned this earlier, was that the decision making does not default to family or spouses, and I just think that people don't know that. So it's important for them to know that. To get them thinking about things.
Yeah, they can talk to a next of kin to help with the decision, but ultimately it's the hospital that, you know, and the doctors. And I think living in such a rural community, you know, everybody knows everybody, and I think it's, you know, they're really good about talking with families, you know, and getting their decisions. But I think ultimately, it's like if I didn't know that either. I just assumed that. You know, my husband knows what I want, and he would make that decision. And so I think it's really important that people get their advance directives started.
And I know we opened with the fact that certainly these are very difficult conversations to have, and everybody's situation is different, so I know that everybody can't be approached in the same manner. However, there has to be a starting point. And do you have any tips on how people can at least try to engage one of their loved ones in this conversation in a gentle way, to at least, because again, it is difficult, and no one wants to talk about, especially if they're, say, 25 years old, you know, they'd be saying, why are you talking to me about something that, you know, maybe I shouldn't be worried about until I'm 70 or 60 or whatever the case may be. So is there any tip that you could give viewers that just to...
Well, I can give you a little story that happened during our class. And it was a daughter who was talking to her mother and basically said, you know, Mom, what do you want to do? You know, what's going to happen if, you know, if you die or if you're in the hospital, you know, what do you want to happen? And of course, she didn't want to talk about it. So her daughter says, okay, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And it wasn't very nice. So she said a couple days went by and her mother actually approached her and said, well, this is what I want, because I don't want you to do what you said you were going to do. So that was, I think it was kind of like a joking, you know.
But it's a way to at least engage and get somebody to start thinking about it.
Yeah, but I think it's the hardest conversation for myself would be having to talk to my child.
Certainly.
You know, and it doesn't matter if you're 50 or you're 20, 19. I think it's always hard to, you know, think about that something might happen to your child. So I think it's the conversation has to happen.
Agreed. Well, I can't believe it, but our time is up for this month. So I want to thank my guests, Erin Armstrong and Colleen Sears, for being on the show today and sharing their insights on the importance of healthcare advance planning. I also want to thank you, the viewer, for spending time with us again this month. You can learn more about NCSS and all of our programs and services by logging on to ncssinc.org. I'm Joe Halco, and I'll be back next month with another episode of NCSS Here for You.
This has been another episode of NCSS Here for You. We hope that you found today's discussion informative and educational. Since 1958, Northwestern Counseling and Support Services has been providing access to high-quality services which promote healthy living and emotional well-being to the residents of Franklin and Grand Isle counties. Over the years, as the needs of the community have changed, so too have the programs and services that we make available to assist children, adolescents, adults, families, and seniors. Thanks once again for tuning in this month. NCSS's purpose remains creating a stronger community, one person at a time.